Welcome to this episode of the Better Podcast. I'm Nicholas Ayers.
I'm Preston Schmidley.
He's a lot quicker this time on the name. And today we have on the show David Carothers. But before we get into David, let's listen to that intro.
Flavor.
Yeah, boy.
Hey, yo, check 1, 2. This is Flavor Flav in the building for the Better Agency. Nicholas wants everyone to know how they need to listen to the truth that Nick and Preston are giving them. Flavor Flav shouting y'all out right now. You heard me? So hold it down and keep making it a better agency. Alright?
All right. As we mentioned, we're here with David Carothers, the king, the mayor of Tampa, Florida. David, what's going on?
Not much, man. Just the overcast Saturday here in Tampa. Picked up my Harley from the dealership that's had it for 2 months, getting it restored for me, and I'm ready to take off and make some bad decisions this afternoon.
Speaking speaking of decisions, I think when it comes to decision making, I think you've made all the best decisions from this side of the country watching you. I would say 2 years ago, I think if you ask people, do you know who David Carothers is? I would imagine nobody really did. But it seems like in the last 12 to 18 months, you've just been on this. I know it wasn't your goal. It's never been the goal. You've just been on this rocket ship where now everybody in our industry is going, do you know David Carothers? Have you spoken with him? And it's people come away knowing you or talking with you, and they're like, I've got to be more like that guy. Not because of your suits, your personality, or the fact that you can, slow smoke a pork shoulder, but the level of knowledge and expertise that is so evident when people talk, especially in commercial insurance, but I think just in sales in general. I think you have such a strong acumen in that. I think people walk away so impressed. What do you attribute that to? I mean, I think there are a lot of people who are smart in our industry. There are a lot of people who do good things in our industry. There are a lot of people who help people in our industry. But what separates you from maybe the rest of the pack when it comes to just thinking the way that you think and performing the way that you perform?
Wow, that's a lot to get through. I would say the first thing that separates me is I only post the things that are my good decisions. So I have you fooled. But aside from that, I think that I'm motivated in different ways. I've been a student of the game for my entire life, really. I mean, even if you get into the intro to my book, I talk about my first sales job when I was in elementary school, right? Where I figured out, hey, here's an opportunity to make some coin. I'm going to go do it. Got in trouble with the principal, and well, the rest is history there. But, I enjoy it. I enjoy the hunt. I enjoy the kill. I enjoy the psychology and looking at different angles and knowing that there are things that we can do to improve our game on a daily basis. And I do that. I mean, it's not, I wish I had some super sexy answer for you that was like,
I think that's a very sexy answer.
Secret sauce. But at the end of the day, it's the grind, man. I mean, people ask me, it's funny because people ask me all the time, how did you figure this out? How did you figure that out? And the answer that I give them is really simple, man. It's natural selection. I had no choice, right? Until you've lived off of boxed macaroni and ramen noodles, and every time you hear beep, beep, beep out in front of your house, you're peeling back the curtains to see if it's your car that's getting repossessed. You're not going to be able to come up with creative solutions. And I've lived that before. I've been there. I know what that's like. And I don't take that for granted any day of my life. And the other thing that motivates me is when people tell me that I can't. They don't have belief in me, and I have very strong self-belief. So I make it my mission to go out and prove them wrong. And I got a wild streak in me for the last couple of years. So that's the result.
Well, I think too, I mean, this is your book. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, if you're listening to the podcast, I want you to go out and we'll talk a little bit more about what's in here, but the extra 2 minutes, this is a book that you wrote for the industry. I think more than just the industry. I think this is a lot of things that are in here are so applicable to anybody else. And when people ask me about David Carothers, they say, what is, David's thing? I always tell them, if you are in sales, if you are on the hunt, then you need to listen to what David says. I think what you say is applicable not in our industry, not just to commercial lines. I mean, people know you as a middle market whale hunter. But I think the things that you talk about, I don't care if you're selling, middle market insurance or you're selling HO4s to people in apartment complexes. I think that there's something to be said for really honing your skills, sharpening the sword, and improving your skill set when it comes to sales and learning about people. You call it sales psychology, and I think that's something that is sorely lacking in a lot of our training. But can you talk about what went into writing the extra 2 minutes? Can you talk about where this came from and why this?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to something that I tell my producers all the time. The difference between, and it goes back again even further to what my grandfather taught me growing up: measure twice, cut once, do the job right the first time. And, if you read through that, and even just the introduction, what struck me when I went back and read it after writing it is how much my process hasn't really changed over my entire adult life. It didn't matter if I was selling satellite dishes door to door. I created cable interest surveys so that I could go out and quantify how much people were spending for entertainment on a monthly basis, and then came in and showed them how much it would cost them to buy a satellite dish and how much money they would save, but how much more entertainment they would get. And, that's no different than me going in and doing a total cost of risk calculation for a middle market account right now, and that what went into the book is just really a culmination of all of my experiences. And if I look at it, there's different pieces and parts. If I pull strands out, there's a little bit of Jeffrey Gitomer in there. There's a little bit of Tom Hopkins in there. There's a little bit, I can go and see
Gitomer's
things,
a classic.
Yeah. Things that I've done where there's Nick Ayers in there, right? Things that I've learned from Made You Look in the use of video inside the agency in the sales process. And so it really is just a tapestry woven from all of the experiences and all of the knowledge I've been able to obtain, whether it be, through experience or forced reading or whatever else. But that's what happened.
Well, one thing too, to patch onto that, this podcast started with, you're ready to make some bad decisions on your Harley. I think one of the things actually that is I'm sure you've made a lot of bad decisions, and I have too. I can connect with that. But I think that the thing that separates us, we, like you said, you only show your good decisions. I think that what is there is we've made a lot of bad decisions. We've had to cut through a lot of crap to get those successes. And but you did, right? I think most people are scared to have the failures. And so they're scared to have the opposite of the wins. And so they don't get the wins because they were scared of the alternative. And I think that what is one of your greatest separators is you're ready to make some bad decisions, which I think is actually a bigger thing than just a cute line about a Harley Davidson. You're ready to actually make some bad decisions because you're trying to get through that. You got to pull the weeds to get to the flowers. And that's a mindset of yours.
Yeah, no, look, I make bad decisions every single day. I think that the difference is I own them. It's not that the people are necessarily afraid to fail as much as it is they're afraid to own those failures and have to be accountable for them. There's a general lack of accountability everywhere in society right now. It's not limited 100%. To the insurance industry or sales. It's everywhere you look, unfortunately. And so that's number one. Number two, man, and this is something that I've talked about a lot recently. We always worry about failing forward and learning when we lose. But how many times do we stop and ask people why we won? If you go in and you get a big middle market account or any piece of business, I don't care if it's a home and auto or, Main Street BOP for commercial or whatever else. How many times can that salesperson that sold the product or the producer, the agent that took care of the insurance business, how many times they say, hey, look, I really appreciate you coming on board and becoming part of our family. I just have a really quick question for you. Why did you hire me? What did I say that led you to believe I was the right decision for you? Because I want to make sure that whatever that was, I replicate again the next time and the next time and the next time. Because while my framework and everything has pretty much remained similar for the last 15 to 20 years, there's minor tweaks in there. And I think that the only time you can identify those are when you ask the questions, both not just when you lose and you fail to learn from that. Everybody does that. Ask why you won and then learn to replicate that behavior.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. Big doors swing on small hinges, man. I mean, those little tweaks are, I'm sure that helps you get an amplified level of success. But that's, it's an interesting point. You said it's a lack of accountability and ownership in the failures, which I think is true. But I think there's also kind of an amplifier there. If you're in a position of leadership, if you're an agency owner, right, we have even less room for margin for error on that for the lack of accountability and ownership. I think that when you are in a leadership position, there is a very heightened need for ownership and accountability in the failures. It's like you can get away with that when you're a producer, when you're a CSR, when you're bagging groceries at a grocery store. But the moment that there's people that look to you for the direction and the leadership, I think there's a need. People are yearning for that, and so that's kind of in my opinion, that's a call to action to show up in your best authentic self when you do fail.
Well, I think the other thing too is leaders need to be the ones who demonstrate accountability from the top down, right? I look at it this way. If you're the leader of an organization and you're not accepting, responsibility for literally everything that's under your watch, it's like a little kid playing peekaboo. They put their hands over their face and they don't see you, so they don't think you can see them, and they hide their face and bury it in that. But then all of a sudden they take their hands away and it's there. And the joke's on them. I've been watching my kid the whole time do that. It's no different than the people in your organization watching you run it. They see everything you do. It's a matter of whether or not you acknowledge the fact that they saw it, admit that you've made a mistake or didn't do something right, and then ask for how they would help you to fix it. I mean, I think that there's also a major chasm right now in the generational divide in agencies, right? And I talk about this all the time, but we have a generational issue where the old guard that is getting ready to move on to pasture or sell their agency or whatever else likes to control it, and they don't collaborate. They don't listen to the next generation. They don't listen to other people's advice. And the problem is they've got a diminishing communication platform because they're no longer speaking the language of their constituency. Right. So I've got people in my team that joined my team fresh out of high school that know about things on social media and other things that are going on to get the message out about what we do that I never would have known about.
Right.
They also tend to look at operational things inside the agency from a completely different perspective. And I'm not advocating that if you're an agency owner, you just walk in one day and turn the keys over to your entire team. What I'm saying is bring them in and listen to them and stop acting like they're stupid kids who don't know any better or have a sense of entitlement, because the fact is you're missing out on teachable moments every single time you don't give them an opportunity to participate in discussions. If you want them to learn the industry, teach them the frickin' industry.
Yeah.
Unless they're stupid kids with entitlement.
Yeah.
I want to switch gears. I want to ask you a question about Killing Commercial.
Sure.
Where did the whole idea of Killing Commercial come from? And I remember it was probably, I want to say it was close. If it wasn't a year ago, it was very close to a year ago, where I remember your Facebook Live. You went on a Facebook Live bonanza for what felt like 2 or 3 days, talking about the concept of Killing Commercial. And I remember the passion and vigor you had for talking about it. There was something there that said, okay, this is needed. We got to have something like this. Where did that come from? And why is it so valuable?
I can tell you to the day when it started. It wasn't even a year ago. It was right after Innovation in San Diego that all of that happened.
Yeah.
So it's funny because there was sort of it's like the three rivers in Pittsburgh. They all come together to form the Monongahela and the Allegheny come together to form the Ohio. I had a need. Other people had a need. And part of it goes back to how I hire people and the fact I don't bring people in that have insurance experience to be producers in my organization. So most people don't realize Killing Commercial wasn't designed for the outward. It was designed for my agency. It's my actual training program. And because we're scaling the way that we're scaling, I needed a way to digitize what's in my head because I'm getting to the point where I don't have the capacity to work with the producers one-on-one like I needed to. So I went out and I talked about my hiring process and a little bit about bringing in people who don't have experience and how we grow those producers from the ground up. And I'm not kidding, man. I must have had 50 agency principals come up to me and ask me if I would consult with them and train their team or whatever else. And my answer was very quickly and unequivocally, no, I have no interest in doing that. I own my agency. I own, I like to produce myself. And the last thing that I want to do is dedicate my time and quite honestly, have the perceived diminishment of my own reputation as an agency principal and producer as a result of having something to take my attention on the side too, in terms of Killing Commercial. Got on the airplane back from San Diego, started sketching out what I needed to do when I got back to get my stuff down. And I'm like, you know what? Mama didn't raise no dummy. 50 people. Come on now. They let's see what happens. So I did. It was literally an organic assault just from Facebook. And I'm not nearly as talented in the digital marketing aspects as you guys are. So there were no paid ads or manipulating keywords or interests or any of that. It was literally
it was you going live in 5-minute increments, like every 5 minutes.
Yeah. It was me just going nuts and saying, here's the deal. And so we did. I launched it off of my personal Facebook page, and in 48 hours, we had 25 agencies sign up. So at that point, need was proven. Yeah. Concept has also been proven, but continued to develop over the course of the year now.
You hear people talk about other programs, and sometimes people will come to us or whatever, and they'll say, oh, I was in such and such program, I didn't like it. I've never heard one person say anything foul or ill about Killing Commercial. If anything, it's people like, man, I can't wait till I get to do that. Yeah. And that's really cool. I think that in and of itself, because you can never please everybody, but I've never heard anybody in the almost year say, yeah, I did Killing Commercial. It was all right. Like,
you know why though? There's a reason for that. And it goes back to what we said about accountability. I do ask people, and I remember very specifically asking a guy who got into my who decided to join the program. He had talked to 2 other people that have national reputations in training salespeople. And he said, I'm taking your call, man, because somebody that I know recommended that I talk to you before I make a decision. But I want to let you know before I'm going to make a decision at the end of this call. And I'm like, I know these 2 guys. Why are you even talking to me? It doesn't make any sense. I don't have anything at all compared to them. And we went through the conversation and we get to the end and he said, I'm ready to move forward. And I'm like, not so fast, man. And I immediately went into, tell me why you think I'm the right decision for you. And he said, it's really simple. Not only do you tell us what to do, you show us how to do it, and you have accountability measures in place to make sure that it gets done. So part of the reason why you don't hear that is because the people that are truly committed to making themselves better and learning to do this are subjecting themselves to accountability. Like our modules, they're not allowed to go from one module to the next until they have a one-on-one Zoom call with me. Mm-hmm. And I make sure that they've retained the knowledge, and I get all of the alerts. If people are inactive in the community, I actually pick up the phone and call them or send them an email saying, what gives? You haven't logged in 2 weeks. Tell me what's going on in your agency, what's going on in your book. Most of the time it's because they're so flipping busy that, with getting into new accounts, they haven't had the time to get into the training piece of it. But I hold them accountable. I want to make sure they get results because I'm not a cheap date. I have a lot of pressure on me. And I understand that. I have a lot of pressure on me from the second somebody signs up until they get that investment back. Once they get that investment back, now it's fun for everybody.
I remember the Uber ride to the taco shop when we were in San Diego, and we were talking about, the formation of Killing Commercial, because it was a concept in your head and you were figuring out, what direction did you want to go? And we were talking price point, and I loved it. I knew at that moment when you were talking about the price point that you wanted to go at and the process, and just knowing you and kind of, I use this I don't use this very often, but I think that there is an alpha component to your process. And, I think the word alpha kind of gets thrown around too much, but I think in yours, it's a genuine, like it is a high serotonin program. And, it's in that capacity when you were talking about your expectation setting, your onboarding experience, the price point, it hit all of the right psychological milestones to make it so that people really take it seriously. And I got really excited for you in that because, it's very easy. A lot of people come, and I think that you had the benefit of coming from a position of power where the money wasn't a requirement. A lot of people, when they create a program, they got to get paid. So they make concessions. They're willing to discount the price. They're willing to discount the process. And you were like, nah, dude, it ain't cheap and it ain't easy, and you attracted the right group of people. And I think that was really cool to see grow, and that's
I'll tell you what, man, it goes back to what I said before, people telling me I couldn't do it. And the one of my biggest fans was also the one who told me I would never be able to pull this off. And that's Cass. He told me, Cass said, you'll never get agencies to spend the kind of money
Jason Cass,
to come in. And I said, yes, I will. And I said, Jason, this is no different than anything else in sales. You have to know, if you want the order, you have to have the confidence to ask for the order and know that you can back it up.
Right.
And I said, I'm 100% confident. It's funny because I actually put something out on social this week about a dude that went through in killing right now, Hank Stewart from Gallus Stewart up in Brunswick, Georgia. And Hank talked to me early on back in March. And I even said this in the videos, Zoom video where we were talking back and forth that I had posted. I said, I remember our first conversation, brother. You asked me point blank if I would put my money where my mouth is and guarantee your results. And I said, I think that you probably thought you were going to catch me off guard. But what you got back was, well, yeah, I'd be happy to do that as long as you promise me that you're going to implement the stuff that I teach with the same level of intensity and flawless execution that I do. And if you can promise me you're going to hold, if you're going to hold up your end of the bargain, I'll happily hold up my end of the bargain because this is what I know. It's never the process. It's always the person. The process is never going to be broken. The process works every single time. And where I see people fall off is when they want to take a shortcut. They want to leave one thing out and complain about it. And, that goes back to my days in retail of when I worked with Target. Everything at Target is a common practice. Everything. I mean, it's like Steve Holly runs Target, right? Steve Holly has a process for everything in his agency. He did the thing at Innovation in Vegas a couple of years ago. They even have the process for how to change the flipping toilet paper in his agency. But the thing is, it's no different than that. If you have that process and you stick to it and it's proven, then don't deviate from that. Yeah. Target's the same way. If you're in Minnesota or you're in Miami, you can very easily pinpoint what's wrong in an organization because you just have to go back to common practices. And every time something's broken in one of those stores, it's because a store manager thought they knew better.
Outside of SOP. Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing in sales. It's no different, man. I mean, we're not, I tell people all the time, I'm a big dumb animal. I have to have rules. I have to be able to just follow directions and do the same thing over and over and over again because I'm not smart enough to be creative. I have to find something that works.
I've noticed that we obviously do a lot of consulting and stuff, and the people that always like fail short, if I look at the progress they've made towards the educational part, there's training and all that, it's like they're either 0% is watched or 10% is watched. It's like the people who have long-term success, 100% watched, they show up on weekly calls. There's a strong correlation, so it's like people that and they always come in swinging big, talking about numbers and stuff like that. But it's like they're like, well, I don't like scripts. I don't like that. I have my own way. Well, your way hasn't worked. That's why you're here, and it's like, you've put in the time, man. You've done the hard work, and they just need kind of,
It's the same thing I tell my wife. When we talk about sometimes people or situations or where people are at in life, I go, it's a recipe. If I put these ingredients out on the table and I mix them and I do a quarter of this and a teaspoon of that and I bake it at this, you know what I'm going to get every single time? Exactly what the recipe orders.
Yeah.
And it's that way in life. It's that way with family. It's that way. It's decision making, and that is the recipe. It's the way. It's the decisions that you make. The when you put you plant your flag in the ground and you say, you know what, these are the habits I'm going to put into my life. These are the things I'm going to do. I'm going to take the extra 2 minutes because I know that if I spend the extra 2 minutes on nearly anything in my sales career, I'm going to improve. Mm-hmm. And so it's the same thing. If you want better results, you've got to change the recipe. It doesn't just magically happen. You're not going to have the agency of your dreams because you want it. You're not going to have the revenue. You're not going to have the employees. You're not going to have any of the things that you want. You're not going to be able to sell for the multiple that you want down the road if you don't follow the recipe. And I think that's where a lot of people in our industry struggle. And it's not just we're not isolated. It's every industry. This is where people struggle when it comes to wanting more out of their life. And look, I've made decisions. You've made decisions. We all make bad decisions. But when we fall off the horse, we get back up, we dust ourselves off, and we say, I still got to head north. I still got a destination to get to. And I head in that direction. When you look at agencies, Dave, when you speak to agents, because I know you deal with a lot of people from all different spectrums. When you look at our industry, where do you see the problem? Where do you see people, like if you can get a megaphone and say, do this, right? Do this and your life will be better. It's that meme where it's the guy holding up the cardboard sign and the glasses, and he's just, he's got that message. What is your message on the cardboard sign if you were to say something to our industry as to what they need to be doing? Start
from the end and work your way back. I don't think people have enough vision. I don't think they look big picture enough. When I launched my agency, I put my money where my mouth is when I say this. I made 2 very unique investments right out of the box before I ever hired production, before I ever hired any account managers or anything else. I brought on a full-time CFO to handle the money because I knew I could go out and get the money. I didn't want to have to be responsible for it. I needed her to handle the taxes and all of the other stuff. And the second one is a certified exit planner. I wanted to know what my number was, right? I can tell you right now what my number is. I know how much I'm going to get from that. I know how much my team of people who have made it to partnership status are going to get from that. But I'm not making my decisions today to make today better or make tomorrow better. I'm making my decisions because I already know where the end is, and I have to intelligently and consciously funnel every single decision through that little editor in my mind, knowing that I have to make that right decision to get that end goal. I am a goal-oriented person, man. It's really, really, I wish I could tell you again that I'm some genius, but I'm not. I think of things like, I want a waterfall in my pool. How hard do I have to get a waterfall built in my pool? I need to sell this many accounts, which will give me this much money in order to have that. But I do. And it's funny. My wife will tell, if you were to interview my wife, the one thing she would tell you is, I'm absolutely nuts. I dream way bigger than most anybody will ever dream, but I also accomplish more because if I aim high and miss, I'm still higher than the people that I'm competing against. And at the end of the day, man, that's what really, really motivates me. I am a very conscious visualizer, and I visualize in detail. I can tell you what my vision is right now if you want to know the next one, because you'll see it when I go nuts on Facebook Live and all of that when I get it. But I'm going to get an Audi R8 Spider convertible with a hashtag CBK personalized plate in flat metallic blue with gold brake shoes on it. That's it. I know that I'm going to have that.
I just bought that plate. I'll sell it to you, David.
There's a, without trying to get too far in the clouds on this. I mean, there's a verse in the Bible that talks about this, and I know this is Preston's favorite subject, but it says, it's for a lack of vision that people perish. It's a lack of vision that people have in their life, and I think this is applicable to everything, in their business, with their kids, with their dreams, with just themselves. A lack of vision is what stops people. I think you hit it on the head.
And I think the other thing is people allow their vision to get squashed. They allow their dreams to get squashed. If they're in a subordinate position and somebody doesn't have that same vision and doesn't share those same dreams, instead of them having the guts and the balls to go out and try and grab it for themselves, they continue to be subservient to somebody who can't think as big as they can.
Yeah. Where does that come from, David? Were you born this way? Where does it come from? Were you just hit on the head too many times and you said, you know what? I don't like getting hit on the head. Where does this drive? Because I do think this drive, I feel like it resonates when you talk. I go, there's something that is inside of me that is hearing what he's saying, and I love it. But
I don't know, man.
You gotta admit, you don't talk like everybody else. You don't act like everybody else, and as a result,
and you don't show up like anybody else either.
Right. And so where do you think this comes from? And do you think it's a learned trait? Do you think people who aren't like this can get like this? Or do you feel like it's just, hey, if you can't jump as
Yeah.
high, you don't have,
Yeah.
you can't lift as much. It's just like a natural thing. Like, there's
You're either the lion or the gazelle, and I'm the lion, baby.
right. Right.
And I'm the
Where's
male
it come
lion.
from?
I just lay back and wait for the females to bring me my dinner. I'm
And
just
mate.
kidding. That's so completely politically incorrect, people. I apologize for that. But it is nature, actually. That's how it works.
We're talking about lions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where does it come from though? Where is this? Where do you get this from?
I don't know, man, because I've always had a wild imagination. I've always had, crazy dreams, and I see things. And, it's funny because as we're working through, we've actually had our live draft for the protege this week that we take.
Which I want to talk about now.
Yeah. So, I mean, I look at things like that and I always have the idea, and I'm never afraid to fail. Failure is not even an option on the plate for me.
Yeah.
I don't even think about it. I remember one time, I told my mom and dad I wanted a swimming pool. I was probably 8 years old, and they said, we don't have enough money for that. I'm like, well,
You went out with a shovel.
You're dang right I did. I went out in the backyard and, I dug down about 4 feet wide by, 6 feet deep. And my mother was like, holy crap, we need to stop him because he's actually going to dig a pool in the backyard. If we
He's going to hit a gas line is what he's going to hit.
Yeah. And I mean, it's, nobody in life is going to hand you anything. So if you can dream it, you can do it. You just have to go out and have the desire and the backbone and the fortitude to continue to beat your head against a wall enough times till you break through that wall and you get what you want.
But what you're describing is you're describing something that even as a child that you had. There are men and women in their late 30s, 40s, and 50s who don't have that. I mean,
I think the question is, you're asking if it's nature versus nurture.
Well, is it something?
Well, let me tell you, I can give you the answer. I can give you 100% the answer to the question. I'm going to go back to something that you brought up before about killing commercial and what Preston said. I agree. The term alpha is thrown around way too much. But think about this. If you're going to run with the wolves, you got to be a freaking wolf. You can't be a sheep hanging out with a bunch of wolves or you're going to get devoured. And so what we've done is we've created a community where we're able to have and this can't exist like locally, right? We're not going to go hang out with the people that we're competing against and, talk shop and build each other up and talk smack and try and make each other better. And I mean, not to go, completely biblical in the podcast, but it goes back. Iron sharpens iron. So one man sharpens the other. It's no different. And part of the reason why I continue to push myself and I continue to be driven is because I choose to surround myself with people who have the same goals. Yeah. So many times, we look at broad bases of, people, and that's where we go for our advice. That's who we want to associate and assimilate to be like. When you put yourself into a smaller, tighter knit community of people, there may be somebody who doesn't appear to be that alpha. But here's what I know. Anybody that's had any level of success in sales has tasted the blood once. It's my job to get them to react like the animal they are underneath the layer of professional salesperson.
That's true. I like that. That was some Cass asked me when I was on his podcast. He said, do you feel like it's luck or skill? And I told him people. And I think that's a very true thing, because there probably is a natural element. You were born a little, that there's a genetic
with a predisposition.
Composition. Yeah, I'm sure that's an influential factor for you. But at the same time, I think that there is a primal element to people that, you're told your whole childhood, sit down, shut up, don't do this, don't do that, don't touch that, don't be loud, don't go out. And that stifles your ability to
You'll
be
go
the
blind.
The hot water heater's running out, Preston. I mean,
yeah, exactly. So there's an element there where you learn to kind of be this conservative version of yourself, like don't break out of the box, right? And then you kind of, I'd imagine you have to help recalibrate people towards their more primal animalistic self, and I mean that in a very literal fashion. Like, we are all animals, but we've been so civilized that we forget that sometimes you got to go for the effing jugular, And I think that's I think it's a beautiful thing, man.
It's funny because literally, I'll go back to Hank, the guy I was talking about earlier. He just closed a $300,000 account this week. The dude doesn't have anything close to that in his book. And when he called me, he's like, look, man, it's the 11th hour. I don't know if we'll have time to get this done. I'm like, dude, number one, yes, you do. Send me all the crap you have. I'll review it. I'll set you up. We'll talk tomorrow. He's like, I got to be there at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm leaving at 7. Can you have a phone call with me? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to give you 10 bullet points. And if you get past number 3 and you haven't closed the deal, you're probably not going to close it, but I'll be shocked if you make it to the third one. And I told him, I said, what's the first thing you're going to do when you go in there to meet with them? He goes, well, I'm going to talk to them about, their insurance, this. And I said, no, you're not. I said, you're going to take your competition out at the knees. I said, don't worry about the insurance piece. That's the one thing every single person competing on an insurance account has in common. That's the common denominator. We're all capable of placing the insurance. We're all licensed agents. That's what we're going in there to do. I said, if you want to take them out at the knees, you have to be uncommon in a common situation. And I want you to go in, and your number one goal when you go after this account is, A, you're going to take them out like a freaking assassin, but you're going to do it, and you're never even going to mention the word insurance. And that's what he did. We went in and talked about financial risk transfer, release of collateralization on large deductible programs. All of this other stuff had nothing to do with insurance. The account had never heard it before. And this guy comes back, and I talked to him on the phone. I'm like, dude, I can hear the blood dripping off your chin right now. Like you just went in and you're eating raw meat off of something's femur as you're talking to me. But that's the deal, man. That's how we breed it, is because we're freaking savages. And I expect everybody in there to be a savage. If they're not, they don't belong.
It so reminds me, I mean, if like just the visualization of, in a good way, you're Leonardo DiCaprio from The Wolf of Wall Street standing up in front of a microphone selling those shoes, forget what the Steve Martins or whatever they were. And that's exactly what that is. Let me ask you about the protege, because I think this is something that is I'm starting to see more and more of. How is this a deviation from Killing Commercial? I saw, you told me a little bit about it, and it wasn't until I got on LinkedIn and I saw somebody's video, and I was laughing hysterically at it because it was well done. It wasn't cheesy.
It had to have been Ryan. Was it Ryan Keating?
Yeah, it was Ryan, and there was another guy with an axe throwing an axe at a tree.
Brady Neal, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, this stuff is pure gold. Where tell us about that and where that came from and what it is.
You know what? It's crazy, man, and I don't want this to sound the wrong way, but it's like
listen, we're talking about chewing fresh meat off femur bones. Yeah, we're talking about lions mating rituals.
But people know people know I'm kidding about that kind of stuff, but I'm not kidding when I say this. I wake up some mornings and I'm just completely humbled by the fact that I made that guy do that. You know what I mean? Like I have this competition, and this clown put on a headband with a built-in mullet and is cracking one-liners to audition to be on this show that came out of nowhere. And, that's really, really humbling to me. But where it came from is this. It goes back, and I mean, when you listen to the collection of this, everything we've said during this podcast, it's going to be obvious I'm consistent across the board in everything that I'm talking about. But it goes back to people who don't have a chance. I talk to probably 10 to 15 people a week about Killing Commercial. Some of them are producers and agencies that aren't willing to invest money in them to make them better. Some of them are agency principals who didn't, realize there was a better way, and they're willing to take a bet on themselves, but they don't have the financial means necessary. And I'm like, you know what? Let's create some buzz. And actually, you were part of the inspiration for the whole idea, Nick, because you had told me about a gig you ran to give away a scholarship for Made You Look. And Adam Sheridan won that scholarship. I remember that.
Yeah.
And you told me that, and I'm thinking, you know what? I need to do something around this, but I need to just take it up another couple of notches and make it even crazier than what
you did that.
What Nick did. And so that's where I came up with the idea. And this is one of those things, man, where I come up with an idea, I go 90-0, and like 3 days in, I'm like, I got to figure out how to pull this thing off now. Right? Because there's actually people.
When you say start at the end and reverse engineer your way back, you literally mean start at the end and then try to figure it out.
Yeah, I do. Like, I know I want to give away a scholarship to Killing Commercial to somebody. Now I need to figure out what that's going to look like. And so it's been pretty crazy. And we're, it's kind of an entrepreneurial environment, but now we have a private Facebook group and the contestants are talking smack to each other. We've got some good video footage. We had a live draft the other night.
It's a show, right? It's going to be a show.
It's going to be a show on YouTube. Yeah. And so basically what we're going to do, it's similar in concept, I guess, to The Apprentice, in that every week they're going to be given a different challenge that they have to complete. and we're gonna get rid of somebody every week, and then we'll interview them
Voted
on
off the island.
Yeah, we're gonna interview them on our podcast.
Fired.
But, the next day to get their thoughts. But there's a couple of things that I built into this. Number one, my heart is in the right place. I'm doing this because I want to help people who want to help themselves. I've got 11 people out of 76 that applied that are in putting themselves out there, being part of, completely trusting that I'm going to be able to deliver, but also, doing things outside of their comfort zone. So they've already all won, in my opinion, because they're doing things that they would never have done.
It'll carry over to other parts of their life.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I want to reward that. So one of the things that we said, number one, is I'm not going to make anybody look bad. I'm not going to get on there and be a jerk. I'm not going to hurt somebody's feelings when they know they have to get voted off. You don't have to be that way.
Well,
right?
I guess I'm not watching that if you're not hurting anybody's feelings.
No, I just can't do it. And the other thing is I told them that I want them to participate through the entire process. So even when they get voted off, I want them to participate in the other challenges so that they can gain the learning experience from going through that. Because again, that will also translate into other areas of their life. So it's really cool. We just launched the first challenge yesterday at noon. So every week for the next little bit, they're gonna every Friday by noon, they have to turn in their video roll and everything for their solution to that challenge. And then we provide the next challenge for the following week at the same time. Everybody gets a buy the first week so that they can understand, what the judging criteria and everything's going to be like. 2 people get voted off in week 2, and then we're going to run it 1 per week until we get to the final 5. And then we're going to vote 2 off and leave it with 3 people left standing. We're going to start airing the episodes in February, and we'll run them all the way up until the end of March. As far as the actual elimination episodes, that's going to give us about a month and a half to develop the characters and let people see the backstories of the participants, the backstories of the coaches. And, what the goal is I'm doing, as a free commercial boot camp workshop type deal right the day before Innovation, that Wednesday before Innovation. And I expect that there will be a couple hundred people there based on initial response. We're going to have a mobile app and allow the 3 finalists. I'm going to fly them to Tampa, and they're going to have to present their final challenge live. And the audience is going to vote in real time to pick the winner while we're standing there. So we won't even know who won until
it's very well structured.
For a guy who still hasn't figured it out yet.
No, it's great. It's above and beyond. And I love that about you. I do have a question. I feel like I can make some assumptions, but I want to hear it from you. You said you had like 76 people apply for this. What do you feel in your heart of hearts were some of the big separators between the 11 you chose and the 65 you didn't?
Effort. It's same in anything, man. Hard work is going to trump intellect any day of the week. Now, if you can be smart and work hard, you're always going to be the most successful. But some people just aren't even worth, they're not even willing to get calluses on their hands. So, what we did is we had them give us 3 answers to 3 questions. Tell us why you want to be in the program. Tell us why we should pick you, and tell us what it would mean to you going forward if you were to win the scholarship. And some of the people couldn't even articulate that stuff. So, I don't want to make a blanket statement and throw off on them, but I mean, I'm sure some of those people are listening. Try harder. It's no wonder you're having a hard time selling insurance if you can't even give me answer to 3 simple questions.
Do you feel it's kind of like when hiring an employee, and some people just kind of show up, they want a job, versus there's a person that calls you every day and goes, "No, David, I'm the right guy. Trust me. I'm going to keep calling until you say yeah."
I'm going to give you an example. This is how I think. I had a guy reach out to me on email from a vendor. I also had him reach out to me on LinkedIn. I shot him down on email. I shot him down on LinkedIn. And as soon as I shot him down on LinkedIn, within a minute, I got a LinkedIn voicemail from him just saying, "Hey, look, man, I want you to understand, I really am trying to get in touch with you. This is not some automated marketing. I realize you probably get hit up by a lot of people. I would really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me." And I immediately wrote him back and said, "You win. You get 15 minutes of time. you took the extra step to reach out to me and do it the right way and make sure that I knew that this was authentic. And I appreciate you doing that because it's a tactic that I actually use on LinkedIn myself. So he won, and it ended up being a 45-minute conversation with him and his boss. But that's how I look at things, man. You don't have to be overly creative. Certainly creativity helps, but at some point in the middle market, creativity becomes hokey, and you have to be careful and really balance that. But I want people to, I don't care if they would have crashed and burned. Just looking that they were willing to make that effort tells me that they're willing to invest themselves and they want to make themselves better. And so as a result, that's because look, some of the people that are in the final 11, they probably weren't the smartest or weren't the hardest working of the people. Well, I shouldn't say hardest working, but they probably weren't the most polished of some of the people that I saw. But I saw something in them through their story and everything else that said, no, this is who we want to have in there. And it's funny because I decided to break it up into teams in terms of the coaches, right? So we have Ryan Hanley and Ricky Hayter are our coaches of a team together. Jason Cass and Josh Lipstone are coaches together, and Bradley Flowers and Josh Gurley are coaches together. And they're like, well, why in the world did you put us with each other? And we're not anything at all alike. I'm like, well, okay, guys, again, not the brightest bulb, but in case you haven't figured it out, the social reach of the people with podcasts is through the roof, and I need their mouth. But I also understand that Jason Cass is not going to be in the trenches doing the legwork. So Josh will do that. So we've set it up to the point where we have people that are good worker bees and executors, and then we have the social influencers. They're going to be able to get the show out there and talk about it and talk about their role, and give these people exposure they otherwise wouldn't get if they were only relying on my network.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah. So you said the show starts airing in February.
We're going to start putting stuff out now. We just got the actual landing page on the website live right before I came on to record this. It's the protege.show. And we'll put all the links down below if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you are listening to this on our website, betteragency.io. We'll put all the links down below so people can follow. Yeah. So we're going to start leaking out. Here's contestant 1, here's contestant 2, putting their audition video. I had everybody do their audition video. I had them do a video biography of a more professional nature. And so I've got a lot of material to work with that we can start getting these people out there, and they can start sharing videos with their friends and everything. And we'll build the audience organically the right way, but it's going to start this week. We're going to start leaking all that out.
That's awesome. David, I want to thank you. I think we're going to wrap it up here, but I want to say thank you so much for being on the Better Podcast. I always love having conversations with you because I think they're equal part entertaining, inspiring, and I always get something from them, even if it's just in seeing the mind. I think the way we're going to title this podcast, this is Inside the Mind of a Killer. Because I think that's really how, what I get out of it is just learning the insights and kind of seeing the way that you think and operate. I always go, man, that's exactly how I need to see something or operate in something that helps me out. So thank you so much for being on the show.
We need to get Preston over on Power Producers and turn him into a cartoon. That guy's a blank canvas of opportunity for me.
Let's do it, bro. I'm down. I'm always down. One of the things I appreciate about you, and Nick kind of made the connection. I was going to do it myself, but there's very few moments where like I just feel my chest pounding. I'm like ready to go. There's like that primal instinct, and I think we all share that because we're salespeople. We are hunters, and we enjoy that. But the moment you start talking about closing and sales, and it leaves me with the same exact feeling that like when I finish watching Wolf of Wall Street and I'm ready to just rip the head off of whatever's in front of me. And so, as far as I'm concerned, you can come on this podcast anytime, man. I'm inspired. I'm ready to effing go. I took some notes on this. So I got some stuff to handle with the culture of my own organizations. And dude, I really appreciate your time, man. It's been great having you on.
I'm going to leave everybody with one tip. If you ever want to have that feeling, the one thing that I do every single time, and I've not changed this in 20 years, every single time that I'm getting ready to go to the closing table to bring in a deal, I listen to the 7.5-minute vignette from Glengarry Glen Ross and Alec Baldwin. 100% of the time I do that. If you can't listen to that, and get ready to just freaking go nuts on somebody, then you're in the wrong occupation. But 100% of the time, I've done that.
While you're at it, before we leave, make sure you go, David. Can they find this book on Amazon? The Extra 2 Minutes, how spending an extra 2 minutes on nearly anything in your sales career will take you from good to best in class. David, where can they pick up this book?
They can get it at extra2minutes.com, or, they can get a signed copy there. I didn't realize that was a thing, but apparently it is. Or they can go to Amazon and get it there. And what I would tell you is there are 7 mistakes grammatically in the book. The editor has been fired and a new one hired for the next one coming out. So you email me and let me know the 7. So far, the only person who's gotten them all right, this won't be a surprise to anybody, Mr. James Jenkins.
I believe it. I believe it.
Came in a thesis form.
Thank you so much, David, for being on the show. We appreciate you.
Absolutely, guys.
Hey,
I look forward to it. Preston, I'm sending you my link now. Book it.
Awesome, brother.
See you guys.